Drake pulled his pants up and gave him a hard push. With a slight blush, he bristled.
"Get off me! Drunk people must behave!"
After that, he quickly got up and pulled his pants to check it out himself. He did not think there was anything wrong with him. Looking back, he found Henry had been lying on the floor with the nosebleed continuing. So miserable. Drake suddenly felt like he was so noble, almost an angel. A heart of gold, really.
"No, I must have owed you something in a previous lifetime."
He went forward and lifted the guy up, making him lean on the door, and went to find tissues. Getting a pack of tissues for him to wipe his face, Drake then went to find a bag of Henry's wet wipes, wiped his face clean, and put a tissue into his bleeding nostril. The nosebleed soon stopped. Drake helped him to remove the tissue and patted his face silently. He whispered,
"Get up, go back to bed, and sleep."
Henry was half drunk and half awake. Hearing this, he wanted to get up, but his body was not cooperating. Before he was able to sit up, he fell again. Drake hurriedly held him and dragged him toward his bedroom. However, Henry had been drenched by water and his body was wet. Sighing heavily, Drake reached out and unbuttoned his suit and shirt. Then he touched his pants. Good God, those were drenched as well. Drake untied his belt and unbuttoned the buttons on his pants. After taking off his pants, Drake suddenly felt relieved.
"Humph! You must cook me a good meal tomorrow. Damn, that was exhausting."
Putting his hands up, Drake took him up and threw him on the bed when they were only 2 or 3 steps away from the bed. Drake deliberately leaned over him and said coldly,
"Nice. Cook for me tomorrow, you hear me?"
After that, he threw Henry's hand away. But this time, Henry did not let him go, but pulled him forward. Drake immediately fell with his body directly on top of him.
"Please, don't go."
Henry was half awake and muttered. Then he hugged Drake and rolled on the bed. Drake widened his eyes. His cheeks were slightly hot for some reason. But the next second, he started to struggle madly and shouted,
"Hey, hello, don't mess around, young man. How many times have I said, I'm not gay?"
After pushing Henry away, Drake got up and felt that his face was hot, that it was scary.
What the hell? Damn it, crazy world.
Drake was so angry that he kicked Henry's bottom with only a pair of shorts.
"You drunk pervert, damn it."
After a total of 4 or 5 kicks, Drake took his foot back. Henry was awakened by the kicking, turned and looked at Drake with his cheeks and eyes red. Looking at Drake, he was completely unaware of what had happened. Drake suddenly felt guilty under his gaze. He turned, stamped his foot, and left, banging the door and making a loud noise. Henry was shocked a bit, but he soon lost his strength and fell asleep again. Drake returned to his own room and fell to the bed, looking up at the ceiling. The sky was already bright, but Drake couldn't sleep. Thinking of the inexplicable feeling, Drake found a particularly serious problem. Did it mean he was already... The night was thick like ink, and it was drizzling. This was a small town far away from the city center, with small old houses everywhere. There was a small restaurant in the east of the village. Just a dozen feet from the restaurant, there was a stinking little alley with a few small trash cans. Stray cats, stray dogs, and cat-sized mice were running everywhere. A slim and tall figure was wrapped in a tattered dark shirt that was hardly covering her body. With deep cleavage and 2 long, sexy legs showing, her hairstyle was a mess, which was in stark contrast to her unusually white and delicate skin. At that moment, she was crouching right next to a garbage bag, turning over the fresh leftovers that the restaurant just threw out. It was late at night and the surrounding area was dark. There were not many traffic cameras on the road in the village, and not many people would choose to go out at this time. After the restaurant owner closed the door, he looked around and saw that there was no one around before he rubbed his hands together and walked toward the alley. He had been paying attention to this woman for a long time. Her body looked very good and her skin was nice as well. She just looked a little crazy. She was probably the mentally ill daughter of a rich household who had wandered off. Such a great find, and he was the lucky one to spot her. As he walked in, the restaurant owner quickly found the woman he had been eyeing for days. He went over and whispered,
"Miss?"
The woman who was called turned back and her eyes looked very attractive under the streetlights. Feeling enticed, the owner had clear lust in his eyes and asked,
"Do you need help? I see that you have been here for a few days. Why don't I take you to find a place to take a shower?"
The woman did not speak, and the owner tentatively reached out and gently put his hand on hers, pulling it. The woman did not resist, so the owner was even happier, whispering,
"Where do you live? Shall I contact your family?"
The woman shook her head like she was extremely scared. The owner felt more certain that this woman must be an idiot. Pulling her up happily, he tentatively removed her messy long hair from her face. By the streetlights, the owner clearly saw her thighs, her big chest, and a variety of beautiful female traits and started to drool. Finally, his eyes fell on her face. The owner lifted her hair with his fingers and suddenly screamed and stepped back. The next second, he tripped over the garbage bag on the ground and fell. Sitting on the ground, he was full of fear, looking at the woman in front of him and feeling shocked. Under the woman's unkempt hair, there was a big scar on her face, which looked horrifying and ugly. So much so that whoever saw it couldn't help but escape. What shocked him even more was that on the other side of her face that had been covered by her hair, there was 2 crisscross cuts with flesh and blood and pus, looking very scary.